much for coming. Thanks
so
so
much.
nice to see you. I'm Beth.
Jake Lieberman.
Hi,
Hi, Leah
Jake.
Schulman.
Hi, Leah. Hi,
Hi,
Alexis.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome back to Around the Table. I'm your host, Beth Goldsmith. Today we're here with Jake Lieberman, Alexis Gorenstein, and Leah Schulman as we talk about some of the most pressing issues facing our Jewish community today. I want to start with a statement that I know we can all agree with. Antisemitism is soaring in this country and around the world. So let's talk about it.
What's going on in colleges around the country is just beyond devastating. Hearing about it in the news, it's mind-blowing. I remember learning about the Holocaust, and I remember hearing from survivors, relatives of mine, acquaintances of my grandparents who survived the Holocaust. And I remember in my mind thinking, God, how could something like that happen? And I remember even seeing the movie Schindler's List as I was probably in 6th grade and running out of the movie theater because I couldn't handle it. And I remember my dad coming out to look for me, and he said, Leah, you have nothing to worry about.
I also similarly grew up in a fairly insulated, heavily Jewish populated area. And being young, being in that type of a community, I was naive to think that that is how the world is. And it wasn't until I went to college. I went to college in a industrial part of Pennsylvania. And it immediately became very clear that I was the first Jewish person that many of my fellow students had ever met. The first time I experienced what I would consider real anti-Semitism was when someone said, I don't see your horns. And then, as my life progressed and I got into my profession, there was a lot of the stereotype of Jews controlling the media and pulling puppet strings, and all of these things on their face don't necessarily seem, quote unquote offensive, but they're perpetuating a negative narrative.
So Jake, chime in here. Have you personally experienced it?
Several years ago, I was building custom homes in Northern Virginia, working for a small business up there. Full new drape fell like a Friday. I was going to leave work early. So I told my boss, the owner of the company, I said, listen, if you don't mind, it's Yom Kippur, I'd like to leave a little early today. And he said, okay, give me a little bit of attitude. He said, okay. And then that Monday when he came back, his personality, his viewpoint on me totally changed. He made work just really, really challenging. Mm-hmm. I stayed at the job for maybe another month, and I was like, I'm not going to put up a fight anymore. I'm not going to do it. So I walked away. I resigned. It's really hard today because what I'm finding is the more informed I get, the more hurt I feel because I'm just learning more and more things.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about your friends, maybe what they're experiencing, and how are you experiencing this with them? I'm going to let you start, Jim.
Yeah, sure. What I'm finding is my inner circle that isn't Jewish, they've reached out personally for support, and that was like really nice hearing because you assume that the Jews are going to support you, right? I mean, we're all Jewish, we feel the allegiance to Israel, but to non-Jews to reach out to you personally and say, hey, I feel for you. Like, I know what's going on. Like, it's really sad. Like, I'm here if you want to talk. Like, that's huge.
So you have good people in your world. That's really nice to say. Alexis, how about you?
Initially, I did receive from colleagues and non-Jewish friends outreach of support and things of that nature. However, in the time that has passed, there's been a big shift. I think there's a lot of false narratives that are being thrown around, and I'm finding less and less support. I'm of the mind that everyone's entitled to their opinion, but when you are talking about my humanity and my existence on this earth, you don't have the right to that opinion.
It's very hard for us to comprehend how people who we think are well-meaning, lovely people can think that way. What would you suggest? What would you think we should do as a community to address anti-Semitism? Jake?
Making sure that all the resources are available to everybody, whether you're living in the city, whether you're living in the suburbs, whether you're living in that 83 corridor an hour and a half away that you can't get to the city, you have that phone call, like a hotline, something like that.
You can invite people to sit down with you and have a really intimate conversation and say, listen, this is how this makes me feel. This is my lived experience. This is the way in which either what you're saying or what I'm hearing is truly impacting me. And I just think people respond the most when it is an intimate setting like that.
I think about the Associated and all of the amazing things they're doing for the local community here. And I realize, okay, well, while I might not be able to do this alone, I know that I have this community around me that builds me up and inspires me. And I feel like that's what we need. That's what we have. We are a Jewish people, that we are stronger together when we are with our community. We can do anything.
Thank you for watching Around the Table. Join us next time as the four of us talk about the younger generation's connection to Judaism.